They told me Grandma was in the hospital so I wouldn't go on the family cruise. But when they came back, they found out the truth, and they never expected what happened next. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air as I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the empty house around me. They were gone. My parents, my siblings, my cousins, all off on the family cruise I was supposed to be on. But I wasn't, because they had lied. A week ago, my parents sat me down with serious faces. "Sweetheart," my mum said gently, "we have some bad news. Grandma's in the hospital." My heart dropped. "What happened?" "She had a bad fall," my dad said, shaking his head. "She needs someone to stay and take care of her." I didn't hesitate. Of course I'd stay. Grandma had always been there for me. I'd do the same for her. The next morning I packed my bags and headed to her house, ready to help. But the moment I walked in, I froze. There she was, sitting in her favorite chair, sipping tea, perfectly fine. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Oh, sweetheart, what are you doing here? I thought you were leaving for the cruise today." My stomach turned. The cruise. The one I had cancelled to be here. The one my parents had just boarded. They had lied. Grandma had never been in the hospital. They just didn't want me on the trip. And at that moment, sitting across from my perfectly healthy grandmother, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I sat down across from Grandma, my mind racing. They lied to me. They had looked me in the eye, fed me a story about her being in the hospital, and sent me here. All so I wouldn't go on the cruise. I felt sick. Why? What possible reason would they have to exclude me? Grandma must have noticed my expression because she set her teacup down and frowned. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" I swallowed hard. "They told me you were in the hospital, that you needed someone to stay and take care of you." Her eyes widened. "What? Who told you that?" "Mum and Dad." She shook her head in disbelief. "I haven't been to a hospital in years. They said they were going on the cruise and that you were going with them." I exhaled sharply, my fists clenching. They had planned this all along. Grandma reached over and squeezed my hand. "I don't know why they did this, but you're not staying here miserable. We're going to figure this out." I looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" She smiled, and for the first time that day I saw a spark in her eyes. "If they wanted you left behind, let's make sure they regret it." I blinked. "Grandma, what are you saying?" She leaned back in her chair, her grin widening. "Pack your bags, sweetheart. We're taking a little trip of our own." I stared at Grandma, not sure if I had heard her right. A trip? Now? She sipped her tea like she hadn't just dropped a bombshell. "Well, you didn't think I'd let them get away with this, did you?" I hesitated. "But where would we even go?" She set her cup down and winked. "Anywhere we want." My mind was still spinning from the betrayal, but the thought of turning this whole situation around sent a spark of excitement through me. I grabbed my phone and started searching. "All right, Grandma. If we're doing this, we're doing it right." She laughed. "That's the spirit." Within an hour, we had a plan. Instead of sitting home feeling left out, we were going on our own vacation. And the best part? We were heading to the exact same place my family's cruise was stopping. Grandma pulled out her credit card like it was no big deal. "I've been saving for something fun. This feels like the right time to use it." I couldn't help but smile. If my parents thought they could ditch me, they were in for a surprise. As we packed our bags, I imagined the look on their faces when they saw us. They had no idea what was coming. A few days later, Grandma and I stepped off the plane, the warm ocean breeze hitting us as we arrived at the same tropical destination where my family's cruise was docking. I adjusted my sunglasses, barely containing my grin. They thought they had left me behind? Well, surprise, I was here too. Grandma stretched, looking around. Ah, nothing like a little adventure. I laughed. You're having way too much fun with this. She smirked. Oh, sweetheart, we haven't even started. We checked into a gorgeous beachfront resort, one that was even nicer than the cruise accommodations my parents had bragged about. And the best part? We knew exactly where the cruise passengers would be spending their day, a popular island excursion. I couldn't wait to see their faces. The next afternoon, we arrived at the excursion spot early. Tourists were everywhere, but I had only one group in mind. And then I saw them, Mom, Dad, my siblings, all laughing, taking pictures, completely unaware of what was coming. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked straight toward them. The moment Mom spotted me, her jaw dropped. What? How? She stammered, eyes wide. Dad looked just as shocked. What are you doing here? I crossed my arms. Oh, you mean here on this trip, the one you lied to keep me from. Their faces paled. They had been caught, and that's when Grandma, in all her glory, strolled up beside me, sipping from a coconut. Hello, dears, she said sweetly. Lovely day for a vacation, isn't it? You could have heard a pin drop. I smirked. Didn't think you'd see me here, did you? Mom opened her mouth to respond, but nothing could explain what they had done. And now, it was time for answers. Mom and Dad stood there, completely frozen. My siblings looked just as confused, their eyes darting between me and Grandma. The silence stretched. Finally, Mom forced a nervous laugh. Sweetheart, this is unexpected. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? Because leaving me behind wasn't. Dad cleared his throat. We didn't think you'd actually come all the way here. Grandma let out a chuckle, crossing her arms. Oh, don't act so surprised. You didn't think I'd sit back and let you pull this stunt, did you? Mum swallowed hard. It's not what you think. I cut her off. Then explain. Why did you lie? Why did you tell me Grandma was in the hospital? Guilt flickered across their faces. They knew there was no way out of this. Dad sighed, rubbing his temples. Look, we didn't do it to hurt you. Then why did you? I pressed. Mum glanced at Dad before finally admitting, because we thought this trip would be easier without you. The words hit me like a slap. Easier without me. I took a step back, trying to process what she had just said. You seriously thought I'd ruin your trip? Mom sighed. It's not like that. It's just, things have been stressful, and we wanted to relax without worrying about everything. Everything. I knew exactly what she meant. I wasn't the easiest child. I had always been more independent, more outspoken, more willing to call things out when I saw something unfair. But that didn't mean I deserved this. Grandma, however, was having none of it. She stepped forward, shaking her head. Unbelievable. You didn't just leave your child behind. You manipulated them into thinking I was sick. Do you have any idea how cruel that is? Mom looked away. Dad sighed. We made a mistake. I crossed my arms. Yeah, you did. The weight of their actions was finally sinking in. They had lied to me, excluded me, and expected to get away with it. But they hadn't. And now they had to face the consequences. Grandma smiled and looped her arm through mine. Luckily, we had a much better vacation without them, didn't we, sweetheart? I grinned. Oh, absolutely. Turns out traveling with people who actually want you around makes all the difference. My siblings snickered under their breath. Even they knew Mom and Dad had messed up. Dad sighed again. Listen, we really are sorry. We shouldn't have done that. I let the silence hang for a moment before saying, You're right. You shouldn't have. Mom nodded, looking down. Can we make it up to you? I smiled, but it wasn't the kind they were hoping for. I don't know. But I do know one thing. I turned to Grandma and winked. This is the last time you'll ever get to take a trip without me. and from the way their faces dropped, they knew I meant it.